I'm Ethan Mitchell, 32, and I was supposed to be experiencing the happiest time of my life planning my wedding with Liam. Instead, I received a call from my mother that left me speechless. "You need to cancel your wedding," she said bluntly. "Kaylee's heartbroken from her breakup, and seeing you happy right now is too painful for her. 5 years with the love of my life, and my mom expected me to put it all on hold for my golden child sister's feelings. What happened next changed everything. Before I continue this wild story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button too. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how I turn the tables on my family's ridiculous demand. To understand why my mother's demand was both shocking and yet somehow predictable, you need to know a bit about my family. I grew up in a seemingly normal suburban home outside Boston, nice neighborhood, decent schools, family dinners most nights. From the outside, we probably looked like the all-American family, but inside our four walls, the dynamics were far from balanced. My mother, Margaret, now 52, has always been the dominant force in our household. She makes the decisions, sets the rules, and determines whose achievements get celebrated. My father, Robert, 55, is a kind man but has always been passive, preferring to keep the peace rather than stand up to my mother. Throughout my childhood, I watched him nod along to her decisions, even when his eyes told a different story. Then there's my sister Kaylee, 28, who has held the position of golden child for as long as I can remember. It wasn't just about getting the bigger bedroom or newer clothes, though those things happened. It was the way my mother's face would light up when Kaylee entered a room, how her mediocre report cards earned ice cream celebrations while my honor roll mentions barely got a nod. "Kaylee needs more support, she's sensitive," my mother would explain when I questioned the uneven treatment. "You're so independent, Ethan. You don't need as much attention." I learned to cope by building a life outside my family home. I threw myself into academics, made solid friendships, and eventually moved away for college, putting a comfortable 3-hour drive between myself and the family dynamics that had shaped my childhood. I still came home for holidays and important events, maintaining what I thought was a healthy adult relationship with my family despite our history. 5 years ago, I met Liam at a mutual friend's birthday party. He was standing alone by the snack table, arranging the chips and dip into a more organized layout. I found it endearing and used it as an opening to start a conversation. We talked until the party ended, exchanged numbers, and had our first official date 3 days later. What drew me to him was his genuine warmth and the way he listened, really listened, when I spoke. After growing up feeling perpetually sidelined, being truly seen was intoxicating. Our relationship progressed naturally. We moved in together after a year and a half, adopted a rescue dog named Winston, and built a cozy life in our downtown apartment. When I proposed last spring during a weekend trip to the coast, Liam's tearful yes made me feel like the luckiest man alive. The response from my friends was immediate and joyful. Congratulatory calls, offers to help with wedding planning, and genuine excitement surrounded us. My mother's reaction, however, was tellingly subdued. "Oh, that's nice, dear," she said when I called with the news. "Have you set a date?" "You know your sister might be getting engaged to Trevor soon too." That should have been my first red flag, but I brushed it off. I was used to sharing the spotlight, or more accurately, standing adjacent to it while Kaylee basked in its glow. What I didn't know then was that Kaylee's relationship with Trevor was already on shaky ground. 2 months after my engagement, they broke up after 4 years together. According to family reports, she was devastated. I sent her a sympathetic text and a gift basket, but kept my distance, knowing from experience that my mother would be fully occupied with Kaylee's emotional needs. With the breakup drama seemingly contained, Liam and I proceeded with our wedding planning. We booked a charming venue for May, selected a caterer, and began assembling our guest list. Everything was falling into place, until that fateful phone call from my mother that would force me to reevaluate everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. The call came on a Tuesday evening, just as Liam and I were reviewing potential flower arrangements for the centerpieces. My mother's name flashed across my phone screen, and I answered with my usual greeting, expecting perhaps questions about the rehearsal dinner or hotel accommodations for out-of-town relatives. "Ethan, we need to discuss your wedding plans," my mother said, her voice unusually firm even for her. There was no preamble, no asking how I was doing. "Sure, Mom. What's up?" I replied, mouthing to Liam that it was my mother calling. "Your father and I have been talking, and we think you need to postpone the wedding. Cancel your current plans and wait a year or two." The casual way she delivered this bombshell made it even more surreal. I actually laughed, assuming she was making some bizarre joke. "Very funny, Mom. We've already put down non-refundable deposits on almost everything." "I'm serious, Ethan," she continued, her voice hardening. "Kaylee is going through a terrible time right now. She cries herself to sleep every night over Trevor. Seeing you happy and planning a wedding while she's suffering is cruel. She's your sister. Family comes first." I sat in stunned silence as the reality of her request sank in. She wasn't joking. My mother was actually asking me to cancel my wedding because my sister had broken up with her boyfriend. "Mom, I'm sorry Kaylee is having a hard time, but that has nothing to do with my wedding. It's been 3 months since her breakup. She'll be okay." "She will not be okay." My mother's voice rose sharply. "You don't understand what she's going through. She can't even hear the word wedding without breaking down. How do you think she'll feel watching you walk down the aisle when she was supposed to be planning her own wedding by now? Kaylee and Trevor weren't even engaged," I pointed out, trying to keep my voice level. "And Liam and I have been planning this for months. We can't just cancel because Kaylee is sad." What followed was a 20-minute monologue about family loyalty, selfishness, and how I'd always been insensitive to Kaylee's feelings. My mother pulled out every emotional manipulation tactic in her arsenal: guilt, obligation, even threatening that she and my father might not attend if I insisted on flaunting my happiness in Kaylee's face. "Just postpone it until she's in a better place," my mother insisted. "What's another year or two when you're talking about forever? If you really love Liam, waiting shouldn't be a problem." At one point, I heard my father's voice in the background. "Let me talk to him," he said, and my mother handed over the phone. "Son," he began in that conciliatory tone I knew too well. "Your mother is upset, but she has a point. Kaylee's really struggling right now. Can't you consider a compromise? Maybe a small private ceremony now and a big celebration later when things have settled down." Even as he attempted to mediate, I could tell where his true allegiance lay. It was the same place it had always been, with my mother and Kaylee. "Dad, this is my wedding we're talking about. Mine and Liam's. We've been planning it for months. We've made commitments. People have bought plane tickets. I'm not rearranging my life because Kaylee broke up with her boyfriend." "Don't be selfish, Ethan," my father sighed, and I felt something crack inside me. "Family has to stick together." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence until Liam gently took my hand. "What happened?" he asked, concern etched across his face. When I explained my mother's demand, his expression shifted from shock to anger to resolve. "That's ridiculous," he said firmly. "We're not canceling our wedding. Your sister's breakup is sad, but it's not our responsibility to put our lives on hold." Over the next few days, the pressure intensified. My Aunt Caroline called to just check in, but quickly pivoted to suggesting I reconsider my mother's request. My cousin Patrick texted asking why I was causing drama, when Kaylee was already suffering. Even my grandmother, usually the most reasonable family member, called to say perhaps a small compromise would be worth considering, for the sake of family harmony. It became clear that my mother was rallying the troops, presenting a one-sided version of the situation that cast me as the villain and Kaylee as the fragile victim. With each call and message, my disbelief gave way to a simmering anger that had been building for years. When I shared the growing family pressure with Liam that Friday night, his response was exactly what I needed. "Ethan," he said, taking both my hands in his, "I want to marry you. I don't care if it's in the venue we booked with 100 guests, or at City Hall with just our friends. But I won't let your family dictate our lives based on your sister's emotional state. Whatever you decide to do about your family, I'm with you. But we're getting married in May, with or without them. His unwavering support was the anchor I needed as the situation continued to escalate beyond anything I could have imagined. The following weekend, I met my best friend Brandon for lunch at our usual spot downtown. I needed perspective from someone who knew my family dynamics, but wasn't entangled in them. Brandon had been my friend since college and had witnessed firsthand some of the more uncomfortable family gatherings over the years. "Let me get this straight," Brandon said after I explained the situation. "Your mom wants you to cancel your wedding because your sister got dumped? That's not just crossing a line, that's obliterating it. But am I overreacting?" I asked, still second-guessing myself after years of being told my feelings were less important than Kaylee's. "Is it really that unreasonable to consider postponing?" Brandon put down his fork and looked me straight in the eye. "Ethan, if you postpone this wedding, you're setting a precedent that will follow you for the rest of your life. Every major decision, every milestone, your mother will expect you to adjust it around Kaylee's comfort level. Is that the marriage you want to bring Liam into?" His words hit hard because they contained a truth I'd been avoiding. This wasn't just about a wedding date. It was about whether I would continue the pattern of sidelining my own life to accommodate my family's dysfunctional dynamics. The next day, Liam and I had dinner with his parents, Thomas and Patricia. Unlike my family, the Hendersons had welcomed me from day one, treating me with the same warmth and respect they showed their son. When we told them about my mother's demand, Patricia's hand flew to her mouth in shock. I don't even have words," she said finally. "How could anyone ask their child to cancel a wedding for such a reason?" Thomas, usually the more reserved of the two, was visibly upset. "Son," he said, addressing me directly, "I try not to interfere or speak ill of anyone's family, but this is beyond unreasonable. If this causes any financial difficulties with your plans, Patricia and I would like to help. Your wedding should be a celebration, not a source of this kind of stress." Their unconditional support brought tears to my eyes. This was how family was supposed to behave, supporting your happiness rather than sacrificing it for someone else's comfort. Later that week, I had my regular session with Dr. Rivera, the therapist I'd been seeing for about a year to work through some of my family-related issues. I hadn't planned to discuss the wedding drama, but as soon as I sat down, the whole story came pouring out. "What you're describing is a continuation of the family pattern we've discussed before," Dr. Rivera observed after listening attentively. "Your mother is once again prioritizing your sister's emotional needs above all else, including your significant life events. The question isn't whether her request is reasonable, it clearly isn't. The question is how you want to respond to this pattern going forward. I don't want to cut my family off," I admitted. "Despite everything, I do love them. But I can't cancel my wedding either. Those aren't your only options," Dr. Rivera pointed out. "Setting boundaries doesn't necessarily mean cutting contact. It means being clear about what you will and won't accept, and being prepared to enforce those boundaries even when it's uncomfortable." That session was pivotal. For perhaps the first time, I saw clearly how my family's toxic patterns had shaped my life, and how those patterns would continue to affect my future, and potentially my marriage, if I didn't take a stand. After careful consideration and many conversations with Liam, I made the difficult decision to uninvite my immediate family from our wedding. It wasn't a choice I made lightly, but I couldn't see any other way to protect what should be one of the happiest days of our lives from becoming a battlefield of family drama. The next step was figuring out the logistics. We met with our wedding planner, Michelle, to discuss reorganizing the event without my family's participation. To her credit, Michelle took the news in stride. "We can definitely make this work," she assured us, making notes as we spoke. "We'll need to adjust the seating chart, rethink the ceremony processional, and possibly reconsider some of the traditions you had planned. But nothing that can't be managed." With Michelle's practical help, we began reimagining our wedding day. Rather than the traditional family roles, we would ask close friends to stand in the positions my parents would have filled. The family table would be replaced with additional seating for Liam's relatives and our friends. The final step was crafting the message to my family. I spent hours drafting, deleting, and rewriting, trying to find words that were firm but not cruel, clear but not vindictive. Liam reviewed each version, offering suggestions and support. In the end, I opted for a formal letter rather than a phone call or email. I wanted there to be no misunderstanding, no opportunity for my mother to talk over me or dismiss my decision. The letter would serve as both notification and documentation of why this painful choice had become necessary. The uninvitation letter was delivered on a Monday morning by certified mail, ensuring my parents would need to sign for it. I had chosen my words carefully, keeping the tone respectful but firm. Dear Mom, Dad, and Kaylee, after considerable thought and with great sadness, I've made the decision that your presence at my wedding to Liam will no longer be possible. The demand to cancel or postpone our wedding to accommodate Kaylee's feelings about her breakup has made it clear that you cannot support our marriage in the spirit it deserves. A wedding day should be a joyful celebration surrounded by people who genuinely wish the couple well. Given recent events, I cannot in good conscience include you in this celebration knowing you believe it should not be taking place. This decision hasn't been made lightly or in anger, but out of the necessity to protect what should be one of the happiest days of our lives. I hope that in time, we can find a way to heal this rift, but for now, this boundary is necessary. The invitation for Aunt Jessica, Uncle David, and my cousins remains open, as does my hope that someday you'll understand why this step was necessary. With love despite everything. Ethan. I knew the letter would cause an explosion, but nothing could have prepared me for the magnitude of the fallout. Within hours of the letter's delivery, my phone began buzzing nonstop with notifications. First came a series of increasingly frantic texts from my mother. Is this some kind of joke? Call me immediately. You cannot be serious about this. Your father is devastated. How could you do this to your family? I didn't respond to any of them, having decided in advance that engaging would only lead to being pulled back into the cycle of manipulation. Next came the voicemails, 6 from my mother, 3 from my father, and 1 tearful message from Kaylee claiming I was punishing her for being heartbroken. By evening, the situation had escalated to social media. My mother, typically private about family matters, posted a vague but clearly directed message on Facebook. Heartbroken today. Never thought my own son would choose to destroy our family over a simple request to be considerate of his sister's feelings. Please pray for us during this difficult time. The post quickly garnered sympathetic comments from extended family and family friends who had no idea of the actual circumstances. Some even tagged me, asking what was going on or urging me to make things right with your mother. My father's approach was more direct but no less manipulative. He sent a lengthy email expressing his profound disappointment in my decision. I've always thought of you as a reasonable person, Ethan, he wrote. But this level of selfishness is something I never expected from you. Your mother hasn't slept since receiving your letter. Is this really who you want to be? Someone who causes his family this kind of pain? Kaylee took yet another approach, positioning herself as the wounded victim in a series of private messages to our extended family. According to my cousin Alex, who later showed me the messages, Kaylee claimed I was punishing her for being honest about her feelings, and that she only asked for a little consideration during the hardest time of her life. The narrative being spun was so divorced from reality that I might have laughed if it hadn't been so painful. Somehow, my refusal to cancel my entire wedding had been twisted into an act of cruelty against my heartbroken sister. Not everyone bought into the narrative, however. To my surprise, my mother's sister, Aunt Jessica, called me directly rather than relying on the family grapevine. Ethan, I received a very concerning message from your sister about your wedding, she began. But I wanted to hear your side before jumping to any conclusions. This doesn't sound like you. When I explained the full situation, including my mother's demand to cancel the wedding and the subsequent pressure campaign, Aunt Jessica was stunned. That's not what Kaylee described at all, she said slowly. I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. Your wedding day should be about you and Liam, no one else. By the end of our conversation, Aunt Jessica assured me that she and Uncle David would still attend the wedding, regardless of my parents' absence. We want to celebrate with you, she said firmly. And I'll be having words with my sister about this. Uncle David called the next day to express similar support, as did two of my cousins who had received Kaylee's version of events but found it suspicious. Meanwhile, my friends rallied around me with unwavering support. Brandon organized an impromptu gathering at his apartment where several friends showed up with food, drinks, and reassurances that I had made the right decision. My college roommate James flew in from Chicago just to take me out for a clear-your-head hiking trip. Liam's friends sent a massive gift basket to our apartment with a card signed by everyone, expressing their excitement for the wedding regardless of the family drama. Despite this support, the emotional toll was significant. I experienced waves of doubt, wondering if I had overreacted or if there might have been a less drastic solution. The grief was real too, mourning the loss of what I had always imagined my wedding day would include, like my father walking me down the aisle despite our complicated relationship. The anger came in hot flashes, usually triggered by yet another manipulative message or the discovery of another distorted version of events being spread through the family. Through it all, Liam remained my rock. He never pressured me to reconsider, never expressed resentment over the drama my family had introduced into our wedding planning, and never once made me feel like I had to choose between him and my family, because that wasn't the choice at all. The choice was between maintaining unhealthy patterns or standing up for our right to celebrate our commitment without conditions or manipulation. Whatever happens, Liam assured me one night as we lay in bed, the glow of our phones illuminating yet more dramatic messages from my family. We're going to have a beautiful wedding surrounded by people who genuinely want to be there. And then we're going to have a beautiful life together. That's what matters. With those words echoing in my mind, I turned off my phone notifications from my immediate family and focused on reimagining our wedding day, not as a compromised version of our original vision, but as something new and perhaps even more meaningful. A celebration of not just our love, but of the boundaries that would protect it. With the decision made and the initial storm of reactions beginning to subside, Liam and I turned our attention back to wedding preparations. What had once been a fairly traditional ceremony now needed significant adjustments. Our first meeting with wedding planner Michelle after the family fallout was focused entirely on revisions. She arrived at our apartment with her trademark clipboard and a sympathetic smile. "All right, let's talk about what needs to change," she said, all business once we'd settled at the dining table. First, the ceremony processional. Originally, my father was supposed to walk me down the aisle, and my mother had a reading planned during the ceremony. Those roles now needed to be filled by others, or perhaps eliminated entirely. "What if we both walk down the aisle together?" Liam suggested. "No one giving away either of us. Just the two of us choosing to walk into this new chapter side by side." The suggestion resonated with me. "I like that," I agreed. "It feels right, especially now." Michelle made a note. "Beautiful idea. Now for the reading your mother was going to do, any thoughts on who might step in?" We decided to ask my closest friend from high school, Sarah, who had a background in literature and had always been supportive of my relationship with Liam. When contacted, she immediately accepted, promising to find a perfect reading for the occasion. The seating chart required a complete overhaul. The front row, typically reserved for parents and siblings, would now seat Liam's parents and a few of our closest friends. Tables had to be reconfigured, the head table redesigned. "What about your extended family members who are still coming?" Michelle asked. "Where would you like to seat them?" We decided to place Aunt Jessica and Uncle David in the front row where my parents would have sat, a symbolic acknowledgement of their support during this difficult time. Throughout these logistical adjustments, Liam's parents, Thomas and Patricia, offered unwavering support. During a dinner at their home, Patricia brought up a suggestion that brought tears to my eyes. "Ethan, she said gently. I know I'm not your mother, and I would never try to replace her. But if you'd like someone to help with any of the traditional mother of the groom roles for the wedding, I'd be honored. Only if you want, of course. Her offer was so genuine, so free of the emotional strings I was accustomed to from my own mother, that it took me a moment to respond. I'd really appreciate that, I finally managed to say. Thank you. The next day, I received a call from Aunt Jessica with an unexpected offer of her own. I've been thinking about your wedding, she began. And I know your mother was supposed to be involved in several aspects of the ceremony. If you need someone to step into any of those roles, I'm available. No pressure at all, just wanted you to know. The support from Liam's family and my extended family helped ease the ache of my parents' and sister's absence. Uncle David later called to offer to stand in for my father in any way I might need, whether for photos, a speech, or just moral support. Your father is making a mistake, he told me bluntly. But that doesn't mean you should have to do without on your big day. Beyond the practical adjustments, we decided to add some new elements to the ceremony that would celebrate the concept of chosen family. Michelle suggested a unity ceremony that could incorporate friends and family who had supported our relationship from the beginning. Each person brings a small vial of colored sand, she explained. During the ceremony, they pour it into a common vessel, creating a beautiful layered effect. It symbolizes how all these different people have contributed to your lives and relationship. The idea resonated with both of us, acknowledging that family is about more than just blood relations. It's about who shows up for you, who supports you without conditions. We also had to consider security arrangements. Though I didn't truly believe my family would try to crash the wedding, the escalating drama made it seem prudent to have a plan in place. Michelle arranged for the venue to have a staff member stationed at the entrance with a guest list, ensuring only invited guests would be admitted. It's standard procedure for many weddings, she assured us when I expressed discomfort about the measure. No one will even notice. As the wedding date grew closer, our friends organized a surprise wedding shower that helped heal some of the pain from my family's absence. Held at Brandon's spacious apartment, the event gathered about 30 of our closest friends for an afternoon of celebration. What made it special wasn't just the generous gifts or the thoughtfully prepared food, it was the handwritten notes everyone had contributed to a memory book for us. When Ethan first told me about Liam, I knew this was different, Brandon had written. His face lit up in a way I'd never seen before. 5 years later, that light is still there, and it's getting brighter. Sarah's note brought me to tears. Families are supposed to lift each other up, not tear each other down. Ethan, you've created a family of friends who will always celebrate your joy rather than diminish it. You and Liam deserve every happiness. Reading through those messages, surrounded by people who genuinely wanted to celebrate our love without conditions or complications, I felt something shift inside me. The ache of my family's absence was still there, but it was no longer the dominant emotion. Instead, I felt overwhelming gratitude for the community we had built around us, people who understood that love should be celebrated, not sabotaged. That evening, after the shower, Liam and I sat on our couch looking through the memory book again. I think our wedding is going to be even more meaningful now, Liam said quietly. Not despite what happened with your family, but because of it. We're making conscious choices about who we want to surround ourselves with on that day. There's power in that. He was right. What had begun as a painful family rift had evolved into an opportunity to demonstrate what we valued in our relationship and in our community. Our wedding would now be a true reflection of the life we wanted to build together, one based on mutual respect, genuine support, and unconditional love. With that realization, the last pieces of our revised wedding plan fell into place. We weren't just planning a ceremony anymore. We were making a statement about the kind of family we chose to create going forward. 1 week before the wedding, an unexpected email arrived in my inbox. The sender was my mother, and the subject line read simply, "Your wedding." For several minutes, I just stared at the notification, my finger hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to delete it unread. We were so close to the wedding day, and the peace I'd finally found felt fragile. But curiosity won out, and I opened the message. Ethan, your father and I have discussed your decision at length, and while we still believe you're being unreasonable, we've decided we cannot miss our only son's wedding. We expect to be included in the ceremony as originally planned, with your father walking you down the aisle and my reading restored to the program. Kaylee will attend as well, though she'll need some accommodations to make the day less triggering for her. Please respond with confirmation that we're back on the guest list and send us the rehearsal dinner details. Mom. The email contained no apology, no acknowledgement of the hurt caused by their demand to cancel the wedding, and no recognition of my boundaries. Instead, it was a declaration that they would be attending on their terms, with the clear expectation that their original roles would be reinstated. I forwarded the email to Liam with a simple message. What do you think? His response came within minutes. I think nothing has changed. They still don't respect our decision or our relationship. It's up to you, but I worry they'll turn our wedding day into a power struggle. He was right, of course. This wasn't an olive branch, it was an attempt to reassert control. After consulting with Dr. Rivera in an emergency session, I crafted a brief, clear response. Mom, I appreciate you reaching out, but my decision stands. The wedding plans have been reorganized, and roles have been reassigned. If you, Dad, and Kaylee wish to attend as guests only, with no special accommodations or roles in the ceremony, you would need to RSVP by this Friday. However, given the circumstances, I would need assurance that you can respect this day as a celebration of my marriage to Liam without making it about Kaylee's feelings or your expectations. Ethan. The response was swift and exactly what I had expected, a lengthy email about family obligation, ingratitude, and how I was breaking your mother's heart. It ended with a clear threat. If we cannot participate as your parents should, then we won't come at all. You'll regret this decision for the rest of your life. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. 2 days before the wedding, during our rehearsal at the venue, the situation escalated beyond what I had imagined possible. As we were practicing the processional, with Liam and I walking down the aisle together, the venue coordinator approached with a concerned expression. Excuse me, Mr. Mitchell? There are 3 people at the entrance asking for you. They say they're your family. My heart sank as I exchanged glances with Liam. My parents and sister? The coordinator nodded. They're quite insistent on speaking with you. Should I have security escort them out? Taking a deep breath, I turned to Liam. I should handle this. I'll be right back. I'm coming with you, he said firmly, taking my hand. Together, we walked to the venue entrance where, sure enough, my mother, father, and Kaylee stood waiting. My mother was dressed immaculately as always, my father looked uncomfortable in a sport coat, and Kaylee's eyes were conspicuously red-rimmed. What are you doing here? I asked, keeping my voice level despite the adrenaline coursing through me. We're here to participate in the rehearsal, my mother said as if it were the most natural thing in the world. We're your parents, Ethan. We belong here. I was very clear in my email, I replied. You're not part of the ceremony. The rehearsal is for wedding participants only. This has gone far enough, my father cut in. You've made your point. Now it's time to stop this childish behavior and let your family be part of your wedding. Kaylee stepped forward, tears spilling down her cheeks. I just want to support my brother, she said. Why are you punishing me for being honest about my feelings? In that moment, facing the full force of my family's manipulation tactics, my mother's entitlement, my father's dismissiveness, my sister's performative tears, something crystallized within me. This wasn't about the wedding anymore. This was about the rest of my life, and the kind of relationship I would allow my family to have with me and with Liam. This isn't about punishment, I said clearly, my voice stronger than I'd ever used with my family. This is about boundaries. I asked you not to come to the rehearsal. I gave you the option to attend the wedding as regular guests if you could respect our day. Instead, you've shown up unannounced, demanding to be included on your terms. We're your family, my mother repeated, as if that single fact overrode everything else. Yes, you are, I acknowledged. And I love you. But that doesn't give you the right to disrespect my decisions or my relationship. You asked me to cancel my wedding because Kaylee was sad about her breakup. When I refused, you tried to manipulate me, shame me, and turn the family against me. And now you're here, still trying to control a day that should be about Liam and me. My father started to speak, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. For years, I've accepted being second to Kaylee's needs and feelings. I've adjusted my expectations, limited my requests for support, and tried to be the easy child. But I won't do that with my wedding, and I won't do it in my marriage. I turned to the venue coordinator. These people are not invited to today's rehearsal. If they won't leave voluntarily, please have security escort them out. My mother's face contorted with shock. You wouldn't dare. I already have, I replied calmly. Goodbye, Mom. Dad. Kaylee. I truly hope someday we can rebuild our relationship, but it will have to be one based on mutual respect. As security approached, my family finally turned to leave, my mother declaring loudly that I would regret this decision. Perhaps the old me would have. But standing there with Liam's hand in mine, I felt only certainty that I was finally breaking a destructive pattern that had shaped too much of my life. The wedding day dawned bright and clear, a perfect spring morning that seemed to affirm our decision. As I prepared in a suite with Brandon and 2 other close friends, there were moments when the absence of my family stung, particularly when I saw Liam's father straightening his son's tie in a quiet, tender moment. But those pangs were overshadowed by the genuine joy that filled the venue as guests arrived. Aunt Jessica and Uncle David came early, both hugging me tightly and telling me how proud they were of me. Liam's extended family welcomed me warmly, many making a point to say they were excited to have me joining their family. The ceremony itself was more beautiful than I could have imagined. Walking down the aisle with Liam, hand in hand, felt right in a way that transcended tradition. Sarah's reading brought tears to many eyes, as did the sand ceremony where 20 of our closest friends and family members contributed to the layered vessel that would become a centerpiece in our home. When it came time for the vows, Liam surprised me with words that acknowledged the journey we'd been through. Ethan, I promise to stand beside you through all of life's joys and challenges, just as you've stood strong for us these past months. I promise to be the kind of partner who celebrates your happiness rather than diminishing it. I promise to help create a home where love doesn't come with conditions or expectations. And I promise to remind you every day that you are enough, exactly as you are. My own vows, though prepared weeks earlier, seemed to take on new meaning in light of recent events, especially my promise to choose us, our health and happiness, even when that choice is difficult. The reception that followed was filled with laughter, dancing, and genuine celebration. Without the tension my family's presence would have brought, everyone seemed to relax and truly enjoy themselves. Liam's father gave a heartfelt toast, as did Brandon and Sarah. The biggest surprise came during the reception when Michelle signaled for everyone's attention and a screen lowered at one end of the hall. A special gift from your friends, she announced with a smile. What followed was a video montage that Brandon had secretly organized, featuring short clips from friends and chosen family who wanted to express their support. Messages of love and encouragement from college friends, work colleagues, and even a few relatives who couldn't attend in person filled the screen. The final clip was from Aunt Jessica and Uncle David. Ethan and Liam, today marks not just your marriage but a commitment to building a life based on respect and genuine love. We're so proud of the boundary you've set and the strength you've shown. Family should lift you up, not tear you down. Today, you've surrounded yourselves with people who understand that. Congratulations, and know that you have our unwavering support. There wasn't a dry eye in the house by the end of the video. As Liam and I stood together, surrounded by people who truly celebrated our union, I realized that what could have been a day shadowed by family drama had instead become a powerful affirmation of the life and values we were choosing together. Liam and I returned from our 2-week honeymoon in Portugal to discover that the family dynamics had shifted in unexpected ways. While we were away, enjoying coastal views and deliberately keeping our phones off except for occasional check-ins, significant changes were brewing back home. The first surprise came in the form of an email from my cousin Alex, who had attended the wedding despite initial pressure from my mother to boycott it. "You should know that your wedding has kind of caused a family revolution," he wrote. "Aunt Jessica apparently had a major confrontation with your mom at a family dinner last weekend. She called her out for manipulating everyone and trying to turn the family against you. It got pretty intense, but afterward, a few people started admitting they thought the whole situation was ridiculous from the start but were afraid to say anything." This was followed by a lengthy email from Uncle David confirming the confrontation and adding that several family members who had originally sided with my mother were now questioning her version of events, especially after hearing about the beauty and joy of our wedding from those who had attended. "Your aunt has never been one to mince words," he wrote. "And she told your mother in no uncertain terms that demanding you cancel your wedding for Kaylee's feelings was not just unreasonable but actively harmful. I think it might have been the first time anyone has directly challenged her behavior regarding the favoritism toward your sister." The most surprising development came 3 weeks after our return, when I received a text message from my father, the first direct communication since the confrontation at the wedding rehearsal. "Ethan, I hope you and Liam had a good honeymoon. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I'd like to meet for coffee sometime, just the two of us, if you're willing. No pressure, no agenda from your mother. I just want to talk." After discussing it with Liam and Dr. Rivera, I agreed to meet my father at a neutral coffee shop downtown. I arrived first, choosing a table in the corner that offered some privacy but was still in the main area of the cafe. When my father walked in, I was struck by how tired he looked. There were new lines around his eyes, and his normally perfect posture seemed slightly stooped. "Thank you for meeting me," he said as he sat down, his voice lacking its usual confident tone. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either," I admitted. "But I thought it was worth hearing what you wanted to say." My father took a deep breath. "I owe you an apology, Ethan. A significant one. I failed you as a father by not standing up for you and your wedding. I let your mother's concerns override what should have been unconditional support for my son's happiness." The admission was so unexpected that for a moment, I couldn't respond. My father had never acknowledged any failing in his parenting before. "What changed?" I finally asked. "Several things," he replied, looking down at his coffee. "Seeing how many family members ultimately supported you despite your mother's objections. Hearing about how beautiful the wedding was from your Aunt Jessica. But mostly, it was realizing what I had lost by not being there. I missed my only son's wedding because I couldn't stand up to your mother. That's a failure I'll have to live with for the rest of my life." Our conversation lasted over 2 hours, diving deeper into family dynamics than we ever had before. My father admitted that he had always known the favoritism toward Kaylee was wrong but had convinced himself it was easier to go along with it than to challenge my mother. He acknowledged how unfair it had been to me growing up and expressed genuine regret for his passive role in perpetuating the pattern. "I can't change the past," he said as our meeting drew to a close. "But I'd like to try to build a better relationship with you going forward, one that exists independently of your mother's opinions or Kaylee's needs. If you're willing to give me that chance." It was the beginning of a cautious reconciliation. We agreed to meet for lunch twice a month, just the two of us, with no pressure for immediate forgiveness or expectations that everything would quickly return to normal. It was a small step, but a significant one. My mother's approach changed as well, though in a less direct way. About a month after my meeting with my father, she sent a carefully worded email that stopped short of an actual apology but acknowledged that things could have been handled differently regarding your wedding. She expressed a desire to move forward as a family, and suggested a dinner with her and Kaylee. After consultation with Dr. Rivera and much discussion with Liam, I responded with clear boundaries. I was open to gradually rebuilding our relationship, but I would not pretend the wedding situation hadn't happened or hadn't been harmful. Any reconciliation would need to include acknowledgement of the pattern of favoritism and a commitment to more balanced family dynamics moving forward. Additionally, I made it clear that Liam was my husband and would be included in any family gatherings. His feelings and comfort were non-negotiable. My mother's response was predictably mixed, some defensiveness, some grudging acceptance, and a request for time to adjust to these new expectations. It wasn't perfect, but it was more receptive than I had anticipated. Perhaps the most surprising shift came from Kaylee herself. 6 weeks after the wedding, she texted asking if we could meet for coffee. Against Liam's gentle skepticism, I agreed. When we met, Kaylee seemed subdued, lacking her usual dramatic flair. "I've been doing some thinking," she began awkwardly. "And some therapy, actually. After everything that happened, I realized maybe I've been a bit self-centered." Coming from my sister, this was an extraordinary admission. "The thing is," she continued, "I was genuinely upset about breaking up with Trevor. But I never actually asked Mom to tell you to cancel your wedding. That was all her. When she told me she'd done that, I was shocked, but then, I don't know, I just fell into the role she created. It was easier than admitting how messed up it was." While her acknowledgement didn't erase the hurt, it did open the door to a more honest relationship between us. For perhaps the first time, we discussed the family dynamic that had shaped both our lives, how my mother's excessive focus on Kaylee's needs had been damaging not just to me but to Kaylee's development as well. "I never learned how to not be the center of attention," she admitted. "I'm trying to work on that now." These changes in my family relationships didn't happen overnight, and they weren't without setbacks. There were still difficult moments, misunderstandings, and occasions when old patterns reasserted themselves. My mother, in particular, struggled with the new boundaries I had established, sometimes testing them in subtle ways that required consistent reinforcement on my part. But over time, a new dynamic began to emerge, one built on more explicit expectations, clearer communication, and a growing understanding that healthy relationships require mutual respect, not just blood ties. The experience taught me profound lessons about self-worth and boundaries. For too long, I had accepted the role assigned to me by my family, the easy child, the one whose needs could be set aside, whose milestones could be downplayed. Standing firm about our wedding became about much more than that single day. It was about declaring that my happiness mattered, that my relationship deserved celebration, and that love shouldn't come with conditions. Liam and I recently celebrated our first anniversary with a small dinner party attended by close friends, Liam's parents, and in a development that would have seemed impossible a year ago, my father and Aunt Jessica. My mother and Kaylee weren't ready for such an intimate gathering, but they had sent a card and gift, a small acknowledgement but significant in its way. After our guests had gone home, Liam and I sat on our balcony, looking at the sand vessel from our wedding ceremony that now held a place of honor in our living room. "If you could go back," Liam asked thoughtfully, "would you do anything differently?" I considered the question carefully, thinking about all that had happened, the pain and confrontation, but also the growth and change that had come from it. "No," I finally answered. "It was difficult, but necessary. By standing up for our wedding, I was really standing up for our marriage and for myself. And in the end, it didn't just change our wedding day, it transformed my entire family dynamic." The journey continues, of course. Family healing doesn't follow a neat, linear path. There are still difficult conversations ahead, old wounds that occasionally reopen, and patterns that require vigilant awareness to avoid slipping back into. But there is also new growth, unexpected connections, and the profound freedom that comes from knowing I can both love my family and maintain healthy boundaries with them. If you're facing similar challenges with family dynamics around your wedding or other significant life events, remember that setting boundaries isn't about punishment or rejection, it's about creating space for healthy relationships to develop. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and others is to stand firm in your worth and your right to celebrate the life you're choosing. I'd love to hear your thoughts or experiences with family dynamics and boundaries in the comments below. Have you ever had to stand up to family pressure around a significant life event? How did you handle it? Don't forget to like this video if you found it helpful, subscribe for more stories about navigating complex relationships, and share with anyone who might be struggling with similar family situations. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, you deserve to celebrate your joy without apology.